What's going on, guys? Hope your Sunday is going well. Hopefully, your fantasy teams and DFS lineups are going well. But my name is Hart. For those of you that are new, I'll be breaking down this Sunday showdown slate here on DraftKings. We get the Steelers, we get the Raiders, 500K up top to first place, so a bunch of money to be won. So let's get into this breakdown. I'll be talking through my favorite core plays, some other plays we can go over, building out a potential lineup for you guys, all that good stuff in this video. So hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get into it. Try not to burp here, but if we take a quick look at the game total right now, 43.5, 3 points favored to the Raiders here. And if we want to take a quick look at the snap counts for both teams, just to get a better understanding of how they're currently playing their guys. So for the Steelers, obviously Najee's been terrible. He's pretty much been terrible the past 2 years. He's been about 57% of snaps, so 50 to 55% of the snaps, and then 40 to 45 is Jalen Warren. So we'll keep that in mind there. For the wide receiver situation, obviously Deontay Johnson got hurt in week one. So in week two, we had Allen Robinson go for 87% of snaps, George Pickens 85, Calvin Austin 76, and then they did mix in some Miles Boykin and Gunner a little bit, but pretty much just three wide receivers there for the Steelers. For the tight end situation, they played Pat Freiermuth 76%, Darnell Washington 48%, and then Connor Hayward about 19%. So they are running some, two tight end sets out there, good amount of tight ends, but Darnell and Hayward are mostly just running back or run pass, excuse me, run blockers. That is it for the Steelers side. Let's just go to team targets real fast here, just to get a better sense of that. So for the running backs in week two, Jalen got 6, Najee got 3. For the wide receiver situation, Pickens got 10, Allen Robinson 3, Austin 4. Um, that's really it there for week two. And then for the tight end situation, only one attempt to the tight ends is very surprising. Usually Pat Freiermuth is very involved, but that last game he just wasn't for some reason. The Steelers did struggle there. Their defense pretty much won them the game. For the Las Vegas side here, Josh Jacobs playing about 80% of the snaps. They're mixing in a few different backs here. Zamir White, Amir Abdullah, Jacob Johnson. Not much to go over there. And then for the wide receiver situation, obviously Jacoby Myers was out week two with a concussion. So week three here, I'm assuming it'll get back to kind of this first week where Devontae plays 90%, Jacoby probably 80 plus percent there. And then they'll mix in three different guys for the wide receiver three situation. So like Wilkinson, Renfro, DeAndre Carter, they'll just mix those guys in there. For the tight end situation, Austin Hooper, his snaps did come down in week two. I just don't think they had a lot of offensive snaps there because Michael Mayers was down as well. So they're playing about two tight ends there. Mayer just really hasn't been involved in the targets. So if we look at the targets here real fast for week one and two, week two specifically, Josh Jacobs had 6 out of the backfield. Their offense really struggled that last game, so he is heavily targeted out of the backfield. Same with Amir Abdullah. Jeez, struggling over here. Just in shambles with how bad this slate is. It's just so gross right now. This main slate, this 12 game slate here for the main Sunday slate on DraftKings, it's just gross. But week two, Devontae Adams pretty much got every target. No one else really was involved. And then Hooper had 2, Mayer had 1. It was just a bad all around game there for the Raiders. So jumping into this, let's go over to the Pittsburgh side here. Kenny Pickett is the most expensive player on this slate here for the Steelers side. Very gross. He's been very bad, but he's getting enough points to be viable in the flex. I really don't see him being a captain play unless he has a really good game. But I think he's an okay flex play. I just don't love him in the captain. It'd be a very contrarian play to put him in the captain because no one's going to want to do that. But that's kind of my thoughts there. George Pickens will be very popular. Saw 7 targets the first week, 10 that second. He'll see a ton of targets. A lot of them are kind of boomer bust plays. Just keep that in mind. But he should be seeing 6+ targets in this game. So I think he's a very solid play there in the flex. Definitely has upside there as a captain play. So really comes down to your preference. I think Najee Harris is kind of the X factor. So no one's going to want to play him. He's been absolutely terrible. He's very expensive. But all he really needs is just to fall in the end zone once or have like one big like reception. I know he's been just god awful, but in the showdown slate, if you want to win the 500K to first, you got to think outside of the box a little bit. He's one of those guys that can help you think outside the box. Really, just hope he falls in the end zone. He's been god awful, but they're going up against one of the worst run defenses in Las Vegas, so could be one of those breakout games for Najee Harris. So I don't mind getting a little bit weird with him because a lot of people are going to go down to Jalen Warren there at 6,400. He's involved in the passing game, not too much there in the running game. It's really just, the Steelers get down and then they have to pass and then they throw in Jalen Warren. So I think Warren's a solid play. It just comes down to ownership. Like everyone's going to flock to Warren over Najee. I think I'd rather go to Najee, even though Najee's been god awful. Pat Fryermuth, 4 targets week one, one in week two. I expect a bounce back game here. I expect him to get more heavily involved. He usually, at least last year, Kenny Pickett did look to him a decent amount. So I do like him. I think he's enough upside as a captain play as well. But I think he's the safest in the flex play. So I think right now he's a really, really solid flex play. So I'll throw him in there. Getting down the Steelers defense, always in play. They're a really, really solid defense. Obviously, going up against the Las Vegas offense, you can't expect, 2 6 sacks, I think it was 2 defensive touchdowns in that game against the Cleveland. It was gross. But yeah, I mean, Steelers defense, it's 5,600 is just not worth it. I mean, it's egregious. I'll just say that it's egregious. Allen Robinson, 5,000. I think it's a solid play. 8 targets week one, 3 week 2. He'll be involved. It's just a lot of intermediate passes. So he's an okay play for me. I'd say he's more of a flex play. Calvin Austin, I think he's also a flex play for me. 6 targets week one, 4 week 2. Another one of those guys. He's decently cheap, 4,200. I do like him down there. And I think Chris Boswell would probably be my favorite play here at 3,600 for the Steelers. It's just he's cheap, he's safe. If he gets a couple field goals, Pittsburgh's not the best offensively, so they could really lean on him this game here against the Raiders. So I do like Boswell a good amount, 3,600. And then down to the cheap guys, really no one is sticking out in terms of having to take a shot on them for cheap value. Like Darnell Washington is pretty much just in there blocking, and that's really it. It's just a huge drop off of Chris Boswell. So right now, I don't love the Pittsburgh side. I guess that's probably the public sentiment as well. It's just you don't feel great going to them. On the Las Vegas side here, Devontae Adams will probably be him and Josh Jacobs are going to be the 2 most popular captain plays, and for a good reason. Devontae Adams plays the whole game. He sees a ton of targets, 9 and 8. Always has the ability to absolutely go off. And then Josh Jacobs, just seeing a ton of volume. First week, 19, and then 3 targets, and then last week, 9 attempts, but then 6 targets. So it's just one of those things. They've been gone off to slow starts, and he's involved in both facets of the game, whether it's running the ball, whether it's catching it out of the backfield. Really, really like Josh Jacobs there as my favorite captain player right now. And I do really like Devontae Adams. I think you can pair him well with Jacobs in the flex there. Jimmy G, I'd rather go to him than Pickett. He's also been not the best, but he can go for this type of game. About 30 passes, maybe 2 touchdowns, maybe 15 to 20 fantasy points. I don't know if it's enough to be an optimal captain play, but I think it's a very solid flex play there for Jimmy Garoppolo. But it is a tough defense here for the Steelers. Jacoby Myers, I think it's a very solid play. Nice pivot play off of Devontae Adams. He's not cheap, 8,600. And we'll have to see if he's limited. I don't think he is. He should be good to go. He's in here. So with that in mind, he saw 10 targets week one, also 2 touchdowns. I think you got to pump the brakes a little bit. I do think he'll be involved, but I think this could be a Devontae Adams game. And I think a lot of people are going to flock to Jacoby Myers because he's cheaper, and they're going to see the targets there and how he did in week one compared to Devontae. And I think a lot of people are going to go to Jacoby over Devontae because of that, because of the 2K price difference, because of his box score, which is a mistake. You can't box score watch. So I do think I'd prefer Devontae, even though he's more expensive, to Jacoby Myers right now, especially if Jacoby's way more owned. Getting down here, Raiders defense, 4,000. Can't do it unless you expect them to get a defensive touchdown. Carlson, I think is a really solid play. Really leaning on these field goal kickers in this game here. Could be a gross game. Hunter Renfrow, he's just too expensive for me for a guy who's going to be splitting the third wide receiver role with him, DeAndre Carter. I mean, it's just, as we saw in the snap count percentage, I mean, Wilkinson, they'll just mix in a few of these guys. So if you want to take a shot on any of them, I'd say maybe DeAndre Carter would probably be my favorite because he's just kind of a quick gadget guy. You can kind of throw in there for a few different plays. But other than that, it's one of those things where it's like all these cheap guys maybe see 5 plays or less. And so it's like you don't really feel safe. It's not like last Showdown slate where what was it? Thursday night where, you could go to Wandell Robinson and feel safe with that because he was a very experienced player coming back from injury. First game back, but you kind of knew he'd get involved. You don't have that same feeling here for any of these teams, either side, with these cheap guys, just because they throw in a bunch of people, as we saw. Jacob Johnson was in there for a few snaps. Amir Abdullah is kind of in there for like the backup wide receiver in the running back position there if they're down. So it's just not a lot to like. Mayer has just not been involved at all. It's really just the offense is really just focused on Devontae, Josh Jacobs, and Jacoby Myers, and that's really it. And like no one else has been involved. So if you want to get contrarian, you can go to those cheaper options. As I said, I think I'd feel safest with DeAndre Carter. I don't love that. I don't love going down to any of these people. I've had to go over to the tight end situation. So Austin Hooper, red zone threats. Besides that, they're just not really involving anyone else. It doesn't make sense. So right now, it's just kind of more of a stay away from me. I guess Zamir White, if you want to take a shot on him, maybe he falls in the end zone there. But yeah, not a lot to like. You're under the kicker situation for both sides. So to kind of finish out this build, Josh Jacobson, the captain, Pat Fryermuth. I do think you want to get to Jimmy G, maybe Devontae. Not a lot left over, so 2,900 left over. Really hard to fit anyone else in there. So maybe if we take out, let's see here. Maybe if we can take out, hmm, let's just go both teams. Let's see what we can get here. 2,900 left over. Not a lot on the Pittsburgh side here. Yeah, see, it's gonna be hard to fit in a bunch of these studs just because it's very gross for cheap value options. So everything's gonna be centered in that kind of like mid range to a higher end range, and I do think that's gonna draw more people to the kickers than usual, just because there's not a lot to feel great about under the kickers. Um, so yeah, I do think a lot of people are going to be jamming in those kickers. It's kind of like the bottom value guys in their lineups and building up from there. So I don't mind that. I think it's a solid strategy for tonight's game. It's 9,000 left over. You can get weird like this. Josh Jacobs, no quarterbacks, Fryermuth, two kickers, Devontae, Najee. Let's just throw that out there for the for the lineup for tonight. Don't love it, but as I said, for core plays, I think it's gonna be Josh Jacobs in the captain spot for me, and then it's going to be Fryermuth and then Devontae Adams. Those will be my core plays. Obviously, very popular, but it's kind of hard to get different here when there is uh, no real standouts and there's no real value under the kickers. So as I said, I do think a lot of people will go to those kickers. So if you want to like start off your lineup, I wouldn't mind going Josh Jacobs in those two kickers and kind of building from there. Um, Obviously, with Josh Jacobs the captain spot, you'd kind of want to bring it back with some wide receivers on the Steelers side, maybe George Pickens, because if Josh Jacobs is going off there, they're running the ball a ton. That kind of means Las Vegas should be up unless he's getting a ton of catches out of the backfield. So the Steelers are going to pick it back up. So then that means George Pickens. You probably want to get to maybe Jalen Warren there or a Pat Fryermuth. Maybe even you could sneak in Kenny Pickett. I don't love it, but you can definitely go to him. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process there. But yeah, hope you guys like the video. It's a pretty quick one. I know the games are still going on, but hit that like button, and I'll see you guys in the Monday night football video, which should be coming out probably Monday morning. So thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys in the next video. Peace.